If I was doing a prostitution sting, walking the streets, then people weren't predisposed to committing crime. They could keep driving or keep walking right by me.
We don't arrest people who are predisposed to crime. We arrest them when a crime is witnessed. Had she not been there, and there were no other hookers wandering around, he would have gone home and this wouldn't have been a problem.
Strolling along, minding my own business. Well, there goes a girl and a half. She's got me going up and down. She's got me going up and down.
Correct.
So the fact that I and my law enforcement agency created an arena for someone to make a decision does not mean that I manufactured crime for them.
Yes, it does. If we say that somebody was walking along that sidewalk, I guess, with the intention of procuring a lady of the night, fine. But you have to catch them doing that. When we're talking about this issue of entrapment, sting operations, and so forth, I mean, there's a gray area. There's a good faith, bad faith, lawful, unlawful version of that. I think what is currently on the books as a lawful version of it, though, is problematic. And I agree with Mike. Okay, the very justice system that rules on these matters, not just in the moment of arrest, but when it comes to the courtroom, adjudication of it, it can't use its law enforcement arm to activate its own processes so that it can then enforce it. If you're committing crimes, it actually doesn't matter. As far as the law is, I mean, morally, ethically, it does, obviously. But as far as the law is concerned, it does not matter. Unless a law enforcement officer is present, or there's some sort of law enforcement witness to this, or there's some preponderance of evidence. Maybe nobody's there when, say, a husband beats up his wife or something. All right, well, maybe there's no cop in the house to see that. But if the wife shows up at the hospital all bloodied and my husband did this, and then we go to the house to check out the husband and his hands are all cut up, it's like, okay, we're going to make an arrest there, obviously. But if he does that, she never says anything and they both clean themselves up, it's bad. And the family's going to have to deal with it. There's all kinds of obvious social consequences. But as far as arrests, if there's no reporting of it, witness to it or whatever, then no crime as far as the law is concerned has been committed. A crime has been in reality committed, but he has not become a criminal yet.
Not force them to commit crime. They made that final decision.
Yeah, they made the final decision. Okay, but that decision would not have even been available to them to make if not for you.
Elliot,
yeah,
say something.
Okay. Hi. How are you? My name's Elliot, and I'm with the Cub Scouts of America. We're selling uncut cocaine to get to the jamboree.
Just talk.
I'm sorry.
Regular.
Elliot, stop fucking around.
I can't believe I'm doing this.
You get that shit?
Remember, Elliot, we're going to be right down the hall monitoring you the whole time.
Yeah, well, what happens if somebody does something that you can't hear, like pulls out a gun and puts it to my fucking eye?
Elliot, we've done this 1,000 times.
We know what we're doing, okay? You don't want to go to jail, right? Do you want to go to jail?
No, I don't want to go to jail.
So what do we got to do? We got to put your boss in jail, okay?
And to do that, we've got to show in court, beyond a reasonable doubt, that this man, a very respectable man in the Hollywood community, is also dealing cocaine. We've got to prove it in court, and you got to do it.
That's what we're doing here, okay?
What?
Officer Dimes? Officer Dimes?
What?
This has nothing to do with me anymore, right? Okay. So I'm just gonna leave, and you guys just settle this by yourselves, all right?
Just shut up and stay the fuck put, Elliot.
How do you know his name? Why the fuck did he know your name?
Undercover sting operations are necessary.
Okay.
To catch people that you suspect of being criminals. However, there are situations that I'm very familiar with where they will use another criminal, okay, to go into that, become a confidential informant, and he will help to manufacture a crime by getting people to say things that they wouldn't have ordinarily said, put them in a situation, bring them a criminal activity of some point and put them into it. So yeah, because they don't know what this other person is doing. I give you an example. Michael Franzese, we know he's an organized crime guy. We got our informants told us that, but we haven't been able to catch him in a crime. So let's send somebody in there and see if they can create something to put him involved in. And then we have our crime. That's done.
It is,
Yeah.
but sending someone in like a confidential informant, there's also a lot of controls that are on the law enforcement side. So whether that person is wired or there is an infiltration of a law enforcement officer on, as part of the act, they're still not causing crime to be manufactured. It's all being done rightfully by the suspect.
And by the way, if you're putting pressure on them, it's even worse, right? It's one thing to kind of like, dangle the carrot out there, like, hey, why don't we go commit this crime, man? What do you think? It's another thing if the suspected criminal you're trying to or ensnare resists, not because they think you're a cop, but because they're like, yeah, I don't feel like doing that. If you then press it, I mean, come on. Because any citizen could fall victim in the moment to some kind of peer pressure for this or that. Right? It's like, oh, all right, I'll do that. And then you put the cuffs on him. Oh, see, he would have done it. No.
I can't agree with that. I cannot. When you wire up a confidential informant and that informant brings criminal activity to that other person because that's the person that's the subject of the sting operation, that's entrapment as far as I'm concerned, because that wouldn't have happened if your confidential informant didn't go in and manufacture that crime.
I know what she's going to say. She's going to come back and say, yeah, but you're a criminal. Like, you would have done that anyway. Maybe I would have done it somewhere else. But whatever the crime, hey, let's set up a money laundering operation in this, gas station or something. Maybe that's what I do. And I would, okay. But then what she's saying is, well, yeah, we're going to send in an undercover to help you conjure up this crime and then run it, and then we're going to arrest you for it. You would have done it anyway. Maybe I would have done something like that, but I wouldn't have done the thing that you arrested me for without your guy coming in here and doing it with me, essentially. Okay, yes, it's true that if your guy weren't there, I might have gone and done that somewhere else, but I wouldn't have done it that day. Might have done it next month, different operation. Maybe I wouldn't have been connected to it. Maybe I just would have bankrolled it. Something, whatever you think that crime that I would have committed would have looked like, it would have been something other than what you arrested me for. And all that matters is what is witnessed. You don't get to convert the thing that you conjured up here, okay, that materialized only because you were present, okay, into this other thing that's imagined, realistic as or not.
They're bringing him the crime. They're creating. He's part of that criminal activity.
Understood. But if you didn't want to commit that crime, you wouldn't have to. You could.
Then why are you bringing it to me? You're assuming that everybody or anybody who you pick out is predisposed to crime. That's the operator here, is the assumption that you're a criminal. And so I'm then going to bring it to you, bring the crime to you, and then that proves your assumption? I mean, again, you're doing this with me. I get the intent thing I mentioned before. Oh, well, we're proving your intent to commit crimes. Like, it doesn't matter if you did it over there, over here, or right in front of me. We're running a controlled experiment here. Oh, that's nice that you get to say what my intentions were. What about yours? This informant or whoever, or this guy wearing a wire, you sent him in there and he committed this crime with me, essentially helped me set it up.
You and me, just like old times, man. And you bring in the people you win, huh?
I ain't with nobody. I told you that. I ain't connected no more.
Oh, come on, man. You forget who you're talking to?
Look at
Wait a minute.
This how you beat your 30 years,
No.
huh? Piece of
Let me explain.
I'll kill you. Push you in the
What the f is going on, Carlito?
No. Wait a minute. Wait a second.
Okay, but the intent doesn't matter there. How do we know that he didn't skim off out of the register before you put me in cuffs? Doesn't matter.
You'd be like, you know what? I don't want to do this robbery
That's
tonight.
true.
I don't want to put a, amount of money on someone's head. I can just walk away.
But it's not law enforcement's job to run that experiment in public. It's your job to witness crimes and arrest for them, not to concoct them and operationalize them. That's not what law enforcement means. You can say morally and ethically all you want. Like, yeah, but the point here is to just get criminals off the street. It's not to actually have a free society with rights. What's the more fundamental precept at work here? The Constitution and the rights guaranteed to everybody in the society under which it's built, or to get criminals off the street. The cops are going to tell you to get every criminal off the street. Sorry for them, but the Constitution and the freedom of the liberty that's instantiated there actually overrides that. It overrides the possibility that criminals are still yet apprehended. That's just the reality of that. Sorry, guys.
Listen, I gotta run. I gotta make sure the guys have got the hookers.
Hookers?
He didn't say hookers.
Did I say hookers? I didn't mean
yes,
hookers.
Yes, you said hookers.
I didn't say hookers. I'm walking Ricky out.
You had to open your mouth. You had to say something. You had to say hookers. Ooh, Doc, I'll pay my bill. Doc, don't hurt me.
Absolutely, and if you do, you're not entrapped. But if you do it, then you are entrapped. And that's what the confidential informant is supposed to do, entrap you.
I understand what you're saying, but you just made my argument. So if you could walk away from that, and if you walk away...
What? I could walk away from that. Yep, I could. But the that is not there if you are not there to put that in front of me. That's all there is to it. Catch me doing a crime when you're not the one who's setting the conditions for me to stumble into it.
From that, it's not entrapment. You're not getting involved in the criminal activity.
That's
where
correct.
If you stay involved in it, you were predisposed.
I'm not involved in your crime until you bring it to me. There's nothing that I'm involved in. Okay, that correlates with what I'm going to be arrested here for. Nothing I'm involved in until you show up and construct it. Bottom line.
To move forward with that crime regardless. So it's not entrapment either.
Yeah, I know. By the law, it's not entrapment. Okay, but that's what's bullshit here. That's what needs to be looked at. That's the point.
Well, I disagree with that. I think because it would have never happened if law enforcement didn't put their CI in there to try to entrap that guy, then there would have been no crime.
But if the person they were trying to entrap, let's say it's you, if you were going in with a clean conscience, not wanting to commit crime at all.
Going into what? There is no thing I'm going into if you're not there. There's no conscience that can be clean or corrupted pursuant to some activity that's about to take place. Because if you're not there, conscience doesn't come into it.
Then it wouldn't matter who they put in there.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you're still creating the crime. Law enforcement is creating the crime through their...
They can't get that through their head. And look, you can argue with me or Mike here all day long. Say, yeah, but I mean, this guy's a criminal. Obviously, this act here by this sting operation just only revealed that. Everybody is predisposed to break the law, especially when it's the case that the law says that the cops can trick you into breaking it. Let's say a wallet is left on a bench, okay? The reason most, if not, yeah, I'll say most, ordinary citizens might resist the temptation to pick it up and just take it actually doesn't have anything to do with a criminal aversion, right? Just sort of, oh, well, I'm not a criminal, therefore I'm not gonna, take whatever's in there. Okay. It has to do with risk reward. That's what dictates their behavior in that case. Is there a $10 bill in there? Is it 20? Nope. Is it a $100 bill? Okay. Maybe up in those increments, you might say to yourself, it's not worth it just to take. I'm not going to feel good enough about what this $100 is going to give me, as opposed to just knowing that I took somebody else's money, somebody who might come looking for it or something like that. Okay, but $1,000 in there, Now now this idea of however you think you're however, or whatever the degree to which you believe yourself predisposed to criminality, that's going to start to exit the room here, because there's something that takes priority in that situation, which is the reward versus the risk, sort of balancing that. That's where the rationalizing starts, essentially. Okay, I mean, $10,000. What if it's that? Then all of a sudden it goes from, well, I really shouldn't do that, to, well, if I don't take it, somebody else will, so it might as well be me. And then next thing you know, you're on your way to Buenos Aires. I mean, depending on what the incentives are, they could entrap anyone. So don't give me the, you're just a criminal in waiting, trapped in a law-abiding civilian body bullshit. Okay, guess what? The cops would be just as likely, if not more so, okay, to fall prey to this little parlor trick. And even so, to steer somebody into that and pretend like your doing so had nothing to do with it is just utterly unserious. If a friend of yours, they're in recovery or something, right? They're sober for 20 years, okay? And you hold this glass of pre-poured Rumpelmans on over ice right in front of them, okay? Insisting, you want it, man. Let's go party. Okay, let's say they then take a drink. Did he relapse, or did they relapse off the wagon in any meaningful sense? Okay, or am I, the person who put it in front of him, just a manipulative asshole? I mean, sure, they could swat it away and be strong in that moment, but because we don't approve of my awful behavior generally, okay, I'd be subject to plenty of social derision as being guilty of having set that relapse in motion in the same way the cops would be guilty of its equal in this case. But they're somehow exempt from this. That just can't stand. Okay, but they don't get to that, to like walk you out to the end of the diving board with a pool in front of you, and then if you happen to, jump in or fall in because there was a gust of wind, say, see, he jumped in. He didn't have to do that. What the fuck are you putting me out there for?
A confidential informant, because it would.
And again, I wouldn't have even been anywhere near this pool had it not been for you. Yes, it's true. I might have gone to a different pool or a different diving board had you not been there or not been watching me. Fine. But guess what? It's your job to catch me doing that, not to push me into the pool.
Never happened if that confidential informant, if he never met him, then there would be no crime.
That's the law, by the way. It ethically, morally, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if somebody's already, like, say, as we're investigating this after the fact, during the process of discovery, it's like, hey man, he didn't just, pick up a hooker one time. He did it 50 times before. Okay, well, if that comes out and you want to rack him up on charges for that too, because that's now known, okay. But if the crime for which the person was arrested, or the arrest was itself illegitimate or unlawful, guess what? All that other shit has to go away because it was illegally obtained as evidence.
And I want to thank a lot of people for that. I look over there and I see that man there, Mr. Norwalk. I want to thank you, sir, for making the tapes in an illegal fashion. How could I forget my dear close friend and lawyer, David Kleinfeld, who never gave up on me through everything, thick and thin, right, Dave? Why don't you just stand up here? Just stand up for me.
Mr.
Please stand up.
Brigante.
Davy Kleinfeld.
Okay, Mr. Brigante, you're not accepting an award.
Standing by me. I just want...
Court of Appeals decision and the district attorney's unfortunate investigative techniques now devolve upon me the painful duty of unleashing upon society a reputed assassin and convicted purveyor of narcotics.
No, never convicted on no dope.
The indictment is dismissed. The prisoner's discharged. Call the next case.
So the confidential informant comes in saying, I want to do XYZ crime.
By the way, what I just said there, I'm not saying it would go that way. Just in my opinion, I don't think that the way that courts tend to view this issue of entrapment, okay, is lawful. I think that misalignment needs to be revisited and looked at, or at least somebody needs to make a better argument than this on behalf of what is typically courtroom procedure here.
You can still walk away.
Yeah, let's go to this other asshole. I caught a glimpse of him before.
Tom, how are you?
Well, you've told us a little.
That was awkward. Hey. He didn't even say hey. He's just, man, I don't have to shake your hand. Okay.
Bit about yourself. I'll tell you a little bit about me. I spent 23 years as an FBI agent.
I can already tell. Here comes the piety.
All in Los Angeles. So I have no personal experience of working in New York as an agent, and I never worked organized crime.
Do you know Scott Garriola?
Yeah, very well.
Good friend.
Yeah, well, very good. Okay. I was married to a cop for many years, and your general statement is that law enforcement believes, it's a pretty broad statement, that it's okay to break the law to get the lawbreaker. And I disagree with that. You're describing an FBI that I don't recognize.
That's your fault. One person sees corruption, the other person doesn't. Which one is right? You're not solving that problem just by saying that you have a different opinion of it. Make the case.
I'm not going to argue with your experience.
Okay. So then we're at an impasse?
Have you been paying attention to the FBI?
And by the way, yeah, what Mike is about to say here, he's about to actually give evidence or some of it. Now, there's a question of proportionality. Just because you see one guy, FBI agent, doing X, it doesn't mean that everybody is. But if the volume of corruption is sufficient to turn just your head, but anybody who has the capacity to pay attention, like every once a week, twice, whatever it is, it's like, man, these guys again, what the hell are they doing? Then the other guy can't say, well, look, I spent 23 years in law enforcement. My wife was a cop too. I never saw this. What you're describing is alien. All right, well, here's 5 examples. What do you need? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? You tell me when to stop.
Won't agree to that? Today's, not today. The FBI of the last administration has not been breaking the law, doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
No, I disagree with you vehemently on that.
Vehemently? Are you vehement enough to be specific? Or are you just going to try to continue to smuggle emotion and incredulity here?
Comey has been totally above board.
I am not going to go into some broad political...
Well, okay, he's not asking you to go into anything broadly political here. He's bringing you a specific case, political or otherwise. And you saying, I'm not going to go into that. That's you saying, despite the fact that we're sitting here having what is a sanctioned debate, I'm going to refuse to engage with your argument and your evidence. And I'm just going to continue to say what I'm going to say.
I'm not being broad. I'm being...
And by the way, I'm going to invert the reality of it from a specific claim to a broad claim.
Factual. You believe that James Comey has not broken the law, you think he's been an honest and upright and law-abiding FBI agent?
I think James Comey was a good director of the FBI while he was the director. I think he operated with integrity and honor.
How? I mean, he may have otherwise. We're giving you evidence. James, okay, if you're not up on that, fine. But if you're going to engage in a debate about it, you know what? Get up on it.
We disagree.
And he was widely...
Or if it's presented to you live in the debate, you didn't know it was coming at you, then defer it.
...respected while he was director. Do I think he may have made some mistakes of judgment along the way? Yes.
Oh, mistake of judgment. That's so funny because before we had the undercover hooker there, okay, who induced crimes. Okay, and then it couldn't, mistake of judgment didn't enter into it. It was, you were a criminal waiting to happen. But mistake of judgment, that's all above board. Going after a sitting U.S. president with bullshit, no problem. But get the guy on the street.
I could say that about a lot of bosses.
Why did he allow Hillary to smash her? No, excuse me. I would have went to jail for that, and so would everybody in this room. Why would he allow Hillary to smash all of her computers and everything that she had information on and not indict her for obstruction of justice?
My understanding of that case is that she was not indicted because they could not prove a criminal intent. Now, earlier today...
She admitted that they whitewashed her computers and everything else, all the information that she had in there. She broke her phones and everything else. She admitted to it. She did it.
Your argument earlier is that law enforcement will break the law to break lawbreakers, to catch lawbreakers.
Yes, but you then tried to counter, or you tried to divert away from that by saying, writ large that what you're describing, Michael, is not what I see. And Michael was like, well, what? And so this section of the debate is an attempt to get you to clarify that. You haven't. And then at the moment of truth there, you bail out and you say, well, let's go back to your claim here. It's like, well, we're only here because you took us over here. In the same way that you guys run this entrapment scam.
That's not my experience. My experience of the FBI is for
That's great. It's not your experience. We're talking about something that's going on beyond each one of our experiences. Okay, to the extent that we can observe outside of what happens in our little bubble. Okay, that's what's being looked at here. So if that's not what you're going to do, go take a seat and let the adults handle it.
Investigative technique, I had to get approval at every step of the way. Let's take a trash cover.
What does that have to do with anything? Was your superior some saint? They could have been worse than you. That proves nothing.
For the audience, a trash cover is when law enforcement picks up the trash that somebody puts out on the street. I don't need a search warrant for that. But the FBI requires that I get approval from my supervisor in writing and articulate why I'm going to conduct this operation, what's the purpose of it, and then I have to document the results.
You're kind of wasting minutes here by just presenting us with what your police procedure is and what you do or don't see. Like, give us something that can function meaningfully here.
Are you familiar with an FBI agent named Linda Vecchio?
No.
Okay. He was indicted for murder. Four murders. Because he worked with a
I think more of your
confidential...
guys than my guys have been indicted for murder.
Yes. But we're not arguing that criminals aren't criminals, dickhead. Okay, you're trying to argue that your guys, the guys who are not only supposed to be law-abiding, but who are tasked with upholding the law, you're arguing that your guys are clean. And I never saw anything. Okay, well, I guess now the debate has to go in this direction because that's just not true. And you come back with, yeah, but you criminals are criminals. Yeah, thanks for that. And you know what? You can arrest us one by one when you see us committing crimes lawfully. Fine. That's not being argued.
Absolutely, because we were criminals, but the FBI is supposed to be...
Michael's not saying that we criminals are entitled to commit crimes because we're criminals and you aren't because you're cops. Yes, it's true that you are not. I mean, nobody is. That's the point. But especially not law enforcement.
You were.
Upstanding citizens that took an oath to protect people. But we were criminals. I'll admit to that. We didn't take an oath to abide by the law at all. But FBI agents do. And I'm not saying, I want to make it clear, I'm not saying this, I'm not throwing a blanket over everybody.
Of course you are.
No, I'm
No, he's not. You jackass. Do you know how many times, like, I've seen enough of Michael's episodes in his podcast to know. Look, I don't know how long he's probably been out of jail 30 years-ish, maybe something like that. Okay, he's as reformed as you could be for a former career criminal, okay? He's deeply religious, and he's friends with law enforcement. I'm not trying to build him up morally, but just to respond to this guy's point. He's said on not just a number of occasions, he's saying constantly that a lot of the guys who arrested him previously, or who he dealt with in law enforcement, even prosecutors, he's friends with them now. Like, not only is he friends with them and more sympathetic to them than he would have been before, but he understands the interior of that scenario better than your average person. He's not making the argument that law enforcement is bad across the board, obviously.
James Comey did. 100% he did. James Comey absolutely did. I don't throw a blanket over everybody. Absolutely not. But there were certain FBI agents that did not uphold the law.
I get that. Now let's
wind...
You get that now? Why not before? We just wasted 10 minutes.
That's all I needed to hear.
You have a certain view of the Comey years and that period. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm not going to argue that.
Okay, it's really not a matter of opinion, Michael. Like, the opinion comes after the opinion follows from the facts at hand. Michael wouldn't have that opinion if not for what is now a matter of public record. So it's not just like, oh, I picked this opinion over here. Okay, the onus is on you or all of us to look at the facts and come away thinking essentially the same thing when it's unambiguously true. This guy hasn't made so much as one coherent claim yet, not one. And think about it. I'm not saying all cops are like this, but if he's here as a representative of law enforcement in some way, as a credible debater on this issue, okay, that's what we can infer from that is that there are a great many more like him, any one of whom we may run into on the street or who may pull us over. Okay, this is what you're dealing with in the moment. It's like they're like bulls in china shops, and they happen to be fitted with billy clubs and holstered guns, firearms, okay? And the authority to kind of, push the limits of the law in the moment. Should you have should you be brazen enough, okay, to try and assert your rights or even remind them that you have any rights? Okay, that's enough to trigger them into all this other bullshit that they have no concept of.
I tell you, as from my perspective, from my personal experience as an agent, that we want to get the bad guy, yes, but we don't think it's okay to break the law and do bad things to do it.
That's great that you think that. It's even greater if you comprehend the gravity of what that means, to the extent that for 23 years, you actually didn't participate in any inappropriate or improper behavior. That's awesome. But sorry, you gotta take a wider view. Expand your reading of this, bud.
Now,
that's not an argument.
Can there be a problem? Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I never saw this before, but I'll concede Comey, and absolutely there can be a problem. Well, which is it?
I know of cases where officers and agents, or to use an example of the FBI, we had a situation where someone in the lab was maybe shading his or her analysis to favor the
but I don't know. That's not the FBI I know. But we had this example, that example. Maybe it's Comey.
Allow me to finish. I listened to you very patiently. So there is absolutely a risk that anyone in law enforcement could lose sight of their ethics.
You know what's interesting? In the case of the entrapment thing, criminal or not, predisposed to crime or not, that crime doesn't happen without the cops. But in the case of the cops behaving inappropriately or tampering with evidence or pushing the limits of the law or planting, whatever, nobody set that trap for them. Nobody said it, and they did it. Think about that. The actual criminals, the people who become criminals, they needed law enforcement itself. They needed the criminal justice system to push them into that pool. Okay, otherwise it wouldn't happen. But the agents of that criminal justice system, when they're committing crimes, they don't need anybody to push them in. They just dive right off the high dive. Boom, cannonball coming.
And their values, and
we don't even that is something we don't even consider.
That is very much the
Not to mention they never get prosecuted.
Responsibility of the agency and the leadership and the management to create the culture that says, no, to go to one of the points you made earlier, hey, you don't mind getting caught if you're caught when law enforcement plays by the rules. What I'm trying to tell you is that as an agent, your friend Scott Garriola,
great guy.
He played by the rules.
100%.
The agents that I've worked with played by the rules. Do we make mistakes?
What I'm trying to tell you is what I saw was all above board. Oh, thanks, man. Well, how many law enforcement officers do we have in this country? What's the total number? Because in order for me to take your opinion seriously as an argument, okay, it would be just as valid or invalid as a perspective as anybody else's. So I would then, in order for you to be providing any value here, I would have to compare your perspective against the individual perspectives of every other law enforcement officer in this country to then figure out who's telling the truth, who's not, whose experience is valid, who isn't. Okay, nobody has time to do that, which is why we don't solely award credibility in a debate like this based on one person's experience. it may be true that that's what you saw. You may have seen enough or had an expansive enough experience to carry some credibility into this, but that's just not where this ends. You haven't gotten to the point where you're convincing, because we're speaking to an issue that's greater than any one person. And by the way, one who, just in my opinion, seems kind of naive, is either naive or is lying.
Yes.
Okay,
Are there mistakes of judgment? Allow me to finish.
Mistakes. Okay. Well, did those mistakes ever get prosecuted?
Finish. Yes.
I understand where you're going, but I have a very important question.
Go ahead.
Can you sit there and tell me that you have 100% belief that no agent will violate the law or do something unscrupulous to catch a lawbreaker?
That would be an absurd statement, too.
Oh, it would be absurd. But right off the top, I never saw nothing. But then as we go, there's all these little concessions in here. But none of those concessions undermine what his premise was. They just talk in circles. Oh, we're going over here, we're going over here, we're going here. Then we're back to where we started when Michael asked the question. And then he's like, no, I never said that.
I'm asking you a question. You're saying that in your experience, every agent that takes that oath abides by the oath 100%.
What I'm telling you.
I'm not going to answer your question. I'm not going to engage with what you just asked me. Okay, I'm just going to repeat the thing that I want to say. I'm not going to allow you to stress test all the bullshit I've just coughed up. I'm going to pivot, okay, and I'm going to expect you to not reach for me to try to drag me back where I should be. I'm just going to keep declaring some vague bullshit.
The FBI, like any other organization, every law enforcement, your organization, you guys violated your oath or you wouldn't be. Right.
You can't. We were criminals. You can't compare us to the. If you compare us to the FBI, we're in a lot of trouble.
If he's talking about you violated omerta to not rat on your buddies there, okay, fair enough. But guess what? He's already confessed to that.
Not comparing what I'm talking.
We're not. There's no need to have a debate with somebody who's turned state witness. Okay, about whether or not they actually did it, because we know they did, obviously. Here, we know the facts of what all these corrupt cops have done, and we're still debating whether or not that's happened.
Talking about is human nature. Are there human beings?
Because it's not I don't know anything about that. I'm not going to debate that. Not my experience. So the thing that we're here to debate, I'm not going to debate.
That are imperfect? Of course they are. It's no great debating point to say, stop.
It's no
great debating point to say, oh, you guys, you had this guy who did this. Of course.
That's not the question.
Dude, you need to get out of there. Why are they, if I were these other cops, I mean, they can kind of vote them out of there. I'd be fucking embarrassed. I'd be dry heaving back there.
I asked you a simple question. Do you believe that every FBI agent in the Bureau does things 100% ethically all the time, and they will not stretch it in order to catch a perpetrator? Yes or no? Yes or no?
That is the way that question is framed.
Dude, if you were a better debater here, or just better as a communicator, you actually could answer that question honestly and say, no, I don't believe that. And Michael would not have won the debate right then and there just because you concede that. The problem here is that you're making no concessions in the moment where you should, but then you make those concessions in a roundabout way elsewhere when you think nobody's going to treat them as that. Oh, yeah, well, I never said that. You actually just did. Now I'm going to ask you the clarifying question to tie all this shit together, and you won't answer it.
It's a yes or no.
It is. There's no way anybody could answer.
Why not?
There's no way anybody could answer that? We can't make a basic inference. It's funny. You guys make inferences about what people are guilty of or not all the live long day. No, nobody can say that.
I believe every agent is perfect.
Why
Nonsense.
not? I can tell you people in my organization that violated certain things. They did it, that they didn't do it. Look, and I'll tell you, if you ask me that question,
what I can
no.
speak to is what I was taught in the academy.
Which is what, dude? And how is it relevant? Like, you're telling me you're coming into this debate with constraints as far as what you're willing to speak to or what you have the ability to speak to or speak beyond just by common sense or obvious inference. It's like, hey, I'll debate you here, but I'm only going to talk about the things that I know to be true and in the most ambiguous language imaginable. Not to mention useless, because it's only coming from the experience of one person.
I can speak to the standards my supervisors held.
Ah, fuck your supervisor.
Oh shit! There goes the charabanc. Looks like I'm gonna be stuck here the whole summer. Well, what a bummer. I can think of a lot worse places to be. Like down in the street, or down in the sewer, or even on the end of a skewer.